Good morning to the people gathered, and for those of you who are going to watch later on. So this year for our Adult Faith Forum, we're having conversations about faith. And this month, the month of December, since we hit our longest night of the year, yes, we've been talking about faith in the darkness. Mm-hmm. So I invited Carl to share some of his story about faith in the darkness, and you agreed. Thank you very much for being here and for sharing.
Okay, thank you. Well, hello everybody. Faith in the darkness. I was thinking a lot about it, and you go how far back and how far forward and stuff. So I figured basically just concentrate on my kidney transplant and that was going on.
Thank you.
We have personally, our family has a history of kidney problems. My father and grandfather both suffered from it. Okay, and so when I started in my 29 or so, I developed diabetes, and diabetes is a large contributor to kidney problems. And would have probably gotten them anyways. Is I progressed forward, and they discovered that my kidneys were beginning to fail. They looked at my numbers and how they were trending, and they trended downwards for quite a bit of time. Once it got to a certain point, though, it failed quickly. And that pushed me into the direction of a kidney transplant. When the diabetes was bad, the kidney failure was bad before. It really hit me though when it came down to where I had kidney failure. I remember the first time they told me, standing in the shower and by myself, and nobody near, and I had a good cry, which was great. Helped me to adjust to a new reality. I did a lot of praying then, for God to tell me which way to go, how to proceed, and what my future would be.
So, for the uninformed among us, if you have diabetes, there's insulin for that.
Yes.
If you have kidney failure, you talked about a new kidney,
right?
But en route to that, there's also that rotten thing called dialysis.
Dialysis, yes. I went through 2 years of dialysis.
And how many days?
It's 3 days a week and 4 hours a session. Unless you're behind, then they will extend your dialysis time. So you're also dependent on how fast they can remove your blood, clean it, and then put it back in. If they go too fast, then you pass out and things become major problems.
Did that ever happen for you?
Yes, many times.
Oh, many times?
Yes.
Okay.
It's kind of a regular thing because they will push you as hard as they can until you get the edge. Then the next time they will push you as hard as they can, but they'll back off of that edge a little bit. And they want to get as close to that edge without passing over into it. But allergies and cold weather and all those things affect that edge. So the edge is a moving target.
Okay. So after you found out you had kidney failure, you spent 2 years on dialysis.
Yes.
And then at what point did you go on a list for a transplant?
It depends on when somebody comes up. You have to be at a certain health level. You have to be able to walk up 3 flights of stairs, be able to run on the treadmill for a certain amount of time based on your age and the like. And that's So
you have to be sick enough, and you have to be well enough.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, there's kind of contradictory. Yeah, and and so they do that, and then they look at that your blood work otherwise is good. Are you maintaining your diabetes properly, and well, how's your weight doing? Are you too heavy or too light? You can't be overweight or they won't accept you. And it's also a testing period because there's a limited number that they'll see how well you're willing to, push for yourself by doing all the things you need to do. They're more likely to give it to you if you are doing everything that they're asking you to do.
So there are lots of different lists going on at this point.
Lots of different lists, exactly. And then at a certain point that you get through it, then they start doing blood typing and cell typing to tell what kind of kidney you're going to require. Who else would match with you in the world? And that was a hard time for me because I had a hard time with accepting somebody's kidney who passed away. It was a very, very difficult time for me. Why am I worthy and they weren't?
Was that the main question that kept running through, Carl?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the dialysis part was more of a nuisance, but actually as you started getting closer to the transplant, that was the bigger thing for me anyways.
It's a huge moral question. What did you do with it? How did you resolve it?
I had to give it to God and let Him decide, because I couldn't. And I couldn't ask for a living donor because I said there's some possibility of heredity, so I didn't want to impose my problems on the kids if they got to my point. So I had to determine that. Did a lot of praying for the artificials that are still coming, for many years. But,
How long from the time you went on the transplant list until there was a kidney that worked for you?
It was kind of surprising how quick it went. I think Deb could maybe help me, but I think it was only like 6 months.
Because he has a little rarer blood type, which actually put him on a shorter list. But one of the tests to see if he was ready was to check his both kidneys, and they found he had cancer in the one kidney that didn't work at all. So first he had to have that kidney removed before they can recover from that.
And that one was at the top of the kidney, somewhere in the vicinity of the adrenal glands, which that was affecting me, but didn't realize that I was being affected by that one too. That made me sicker than what I would have been otherwise.
So you got the cancer kidney out.
Yes.
Did you do some recovery at that point because it was making you sicker?
Some, yes.
Some.
They also, when they took the kidney out, they discovered a lymph node that was in the area that had cancer and lymphoma in that. So the kidneys, the lymph node in the area of the kidney was working and filtering out the cancer that was in the kidney from moving around. So that was kind of lucky in a sense, because they would have never discovered that if they hadn't removed the kidney.
So Carl, there's this list, and how healthy are you? And are you healthy enough to receive a kidney? Are you a good candidate?
Yes.
So once they found the cancer in the other kidney, did that demote you on the list, or did that promote? It did demote you on the list.
Yes. I was postponed, until they figured out what the outcome would be, from doing the kidney removal. And of all of it, that was probably the hardest part, illness-wise, for me, was doing that. when that was taken out. Because the adrenal gland was, you know, pumping extra in, the kidney came out, my hormones all had to adjust, and blood pressure changed, you know, it was quite a big change there from that. So, yeah.
It's just, as you're telling the story, it's like, it's not like a straight path.
No.
It is this path that meanders,
Yes.
and even for the doctors,
Yes.
the people that supposedly have all the answers, it's like, oh, we didn't know that was there.
Exactly. Yep. And each part influences the next part. Yeah. From that. So.
So you have the cancerous kidney removed. You heal up from that.
Mm-hmm.
You're on a list for about 6 months.
Yes.
What happens when that phone call comes?
Well, you grab the stuff you need for the hospital and you drive in within like 2 hours. You know,
So
it's
what's
very,
happening
very,
inside of you?
well,
Because you've turned it over to God and said, okay, God.
then it, you know, becomes real. It's going to happen. And today, you know, until it doesn't happen today because of either there was a delay in shipment or some other problem was found, so they have to put you off till the next one to come available.
So is that what happened? You
That's
got
what
called
happened
6
to me the
months.
first one.
You get there, and they're like, not going to happen.
Yeah, we stayed, you know, I don't know, I think we were there maybe 4 or 5 hours, waiting for them to get the kidney received in and have it checked and ready to be implanted, and there were some issues, and so we were sent home. It wasn't possible.
So is that devastating at that point?
It's a shock, yeah. It's not devastating because I imagine it could be for some, you know.
How about for the spouse? Was it devastating for you?
You're warned that can happen, so
Because
you just kind of roll with it. Yeah. One of the cool things, when he finally got the good kidney, is we found out he has a twin kidney out there because they used both kidneys from the deceased patient. So it's always been kind of cool to me that he has a twin kidney running around somewhere out there in the world.
So the first one, you get there, you wait 5 hours, it doesn't happen.
Right.
How long till the next phone call?
Oh, it was really quick.
Weeks.
A couple weeks. So this time when you go to the hospital, do you go more hopeful or less hopeful?
You kind of go in. I go in with the idea that it may happen and it may not, and I have to be okay with either direction. And then once the kidney's there and you've been weighed, they've done some pre-prep, but not as much. But when they're discovering that it is viable, and things happen really quick. They do all the prep work to get you ready for surgery in a very short window.
So do you guys know anything about the twin kidney? Did it happen in the same facility as yours, or do you guys even know that?
I think it also happened at OHSU at the same time.
So 2 people in the hospital that day
Yeah.
Got a kidney.
got a second burst
Yes.
in their world.
Yeah. Second chance at life. Dialysis will only support you to a certain point.
How long? How long can somebody stay on dialysis?
It varies completely by the person. They could be on it for, a year to 5 years, maybe even more.
Maybe even more.
Yeah,
Wow.
it just depends on if their body is handling the urea building up and then dropping suddenly. And building up.
Kind of shocking.
Yes,
Yeah, shocking.
it is shocking. And you get cramps, like you would never believe cramps from the dialysis. And that's when they're withdrawing water and taking out the bad stuff. And then then you've waited there doing all that stuff to get prepped, and they have to give it back to you because you have to have that back for the cramps to go away. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So, anyways,
So you're at OHSU.
Mhm.
The second time, they actually put a kidney in. You wake up.
Yes.
What happens next?
I was very, very drugged at that time, so I don't know. Can never remember which one. You know, it gets kind of foggy.
Of course, of course.
One of them, the anesthetics gave me delirium. So
Okay, so then you have that winding road is back at it again.
Yes.
You have another side trip you have to take.
yeah.
And did that last for a long time?
I guess about a day or so.
It was a bit. It was a bit.
I had the delirium, so I didn't know.
Yeah, harder on her than on you. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you don't remember any of that.
I don't. The only thing I remember is telling my son that he loves me. Can he fix this problem? You know.
You want to go home. You wanted out of bed. You want to go home. So we're fighting to keep him in bed. And he turned, when I wouldn't let him get up, he turns to my son and goes, "You love me. You love me. You'll let me up, right?" Wow.
Yeah. So
How long were you in the hospital for recovery?
I think it was a week, wasn't it? I think.
It all went pretty well, so yeah.
Yeah.
And then post new kidney, how has that recovery gone? Has that gone fairly well for you?
Yes. It's like everything else. It's a windy road, but yes, right now it's doing fairly well.
How long ago did you get that new kidney?
I was in 2019. So
Wow. And what did they tell you? Will that kidney likely work for you the rest of your life?
it's like the dialysis. You don't know.
Okay.
Yeah.
But they keep
They
track of
have-
it at this point, and at this point it's behaving itself and playing
Yes.
nicely with the rest of your body.
Yes. And then they keep track of your numbers to make sure it's working properly. Yeah. Yeah. And average transplanted kidney, it depends on if it was a live donor or a deceased donor. But it's 3 to 5 years, or 3 to 15 years is.
3 to 15.
Yeah. That's the average. But there are people out there who've had it 30 years, so you don't know.
So it's my understanding that once you've had something like this, you have a lot of anti-rejection medication for the rest of your life.
Yes.
Is that the only blip that you see with this new kidney, or are there others?
I guess that's pretty much the major blip. Yeah. The anti-rejection drugs reduce your body's response to allergens. Your immune system is drawn down by these drugs. Yeah, so catching colds and stuff, and COVID could be a very major problem for somebody with immune deficiency.
Yeah.
So, yeah. I've been pretty good at it because I'm an introvert. I haven't had a lot of the colds and illnesses.
You've been able to stay apart.
Yes. Yeah. So, and then I have one anti-rejection drug gives me tremors. So, and those will be there as long as I take it. So, yeah. Can't write my name anymore. Looks terrible. Yeah.
So the whole conversation has been about faith in the darkness and the dark places.
Mm-hmm.
You've already talked about having to come to terms with somebody died in order for you to have this next opportunity, this next chapter. Where else, or even more, if you want to say more about that, has your faith shown in the darkness?
Well, at each stage, the dangers are in each stage of the process. And, I leaned on God a lot during those times. and you know, how much of a problem is it going to be in the future, and you know, you're always, you know, falling back to the kidney. Are you worthy? You know.
So, what did you come to the conclusion of, Carl? Why am I worthy for this person who's going to die so I can live? You turned it over to God. God said yes. Here it is, Carl. So, asking the question today, are you worthy? What's God's answer to you?
I can answer by what He's done so far that I am. Yeah. Yes.
That's powerful, isn't it?
Yes.
Because those are huge questions about who we are and where we are. And yes, Carl. Yes, this one's for you.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. And I ask those that see this to pray for the donor's family.
They're great on those programs too, that they give you the chance to send letters to the family and help you express your appreciation,
Gratitude.
your thankfulness.
They don't let you know whom the actual person was, but they give you an address to mail to, and then they forward it to the families.
And have you taken advantage of that?
Yes.
Yeah. Once? More than once?
Just once. Yeah. And you know, I get to see my grandbabies.
Yeah.
Yeah, so.
So have you guys become like advocates in your family and in your friend group for transplants and organ donation?
Yes. Yeah.
Or maybe you always were?
Yeah. You know, you don't think about it till you become impacted quite the same, you know. But yes. Yeah. I don't know what will be left to me to pass on. Yes. Yeah. You know, I've gone through it, and my thing was, you know, God isn't done with me yet. You know, there's some reason He decided that I was worthy to keep. Yeah. Yeah. I get nervous. Yeah. So.
I forgot to ask a ton of questions. Others?
Well, I came in late, and so I don't know what the beginning was. But my thought, my question, and maybe you've already answered this, is do you have a plan of what you want to do, of things that you have not done and you want to do, and are you moving forward on that list?
I don't know. You know, there's things that we want to do, but they're more just personal enjoyment kind of things, you know.
You say that like it's a bad thing.
Yeah, I was going to say that's bad. I don't think that's
I don't
bad.
think it's bad.
No, I agree.
No.
I agree.
But I haven't had any profound, you know, I want to travel to Europe or something, you know.
But are you working through that list? Those enjoyment lists? Are you working
Yes.
through that?
Seeing my grandbabies is important to me.
Yeah. How many grandbabies are there?
There's 2 of them.
And are they
One
local?
of each.
Local? I mean, they're here or
Seattle.
in Seattle?
Yeah, Marysville actually, but yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. They're 3 and 2, right?
1.5.
Yeah.
I think there are so many years, there are a lot of years where you don't think ahead and you don't plan any farther ahead than what's the next surgery or what's the next step. So I think that's a great question, and it's a challenging one for someone who then has to have more decisions than just what's my next health scare.
Can I ask you about your father and your grandfather?
Yeah, sure.
So they had kidney disease as well.
Yes. My father chose not to treat his.
Okay.
Yeah. And it wasn't pretty at the end. Yeah.
I'm assuming, is it a fair assumption then, that considering the age, grandfather, father, that you've had the opportunity, you took advantage of the best medical interventions
Yes.
and the best outcomes at this point?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And my grandfather was before they really had,
Right.
a lot of things. My father, he didn't like going to the doctors and didn't like the processes that he had to go through. And one of the things they do when you first come into it is they're telling you, do you want to treat it? Some people can't handle just the thought of all the treatment, having to go to a machine, and then finally to getting more intervention.
And your dad made that other
He made the
choice.
other choice. Yeah. And when you have kidney failure, your body isn't filtering out the bad stuff. But in the same breath, it's also not filling out water. So you tend to blow up really big. Yeah. And I won't get into some of the grosser details, but
Thank
yeah.
you. Thank you. I'm very tender.
So, but yeah.
I think where I saw God's hand in his spirit he was always ready for the next step. He was willing to put his faith in the doctors and in God, and whatever is next for me, I will do. And he would do it with so much patience. Got himself to dialysis for all those years and made that commitment to his own health, which was a blessing for me.
Yeah, and you go into surgery and the only thing you can do is it's in your hands, what's going to happen and outcome, So, yeah.
I'm sorry, with you saying that, I'm just thinking back to last week when we were talking about Mary. And I talked to the kids about her willingness. And as you're talking about Carl, that's what I'm hearing, his willingness. Here I am. God, if this is what you got in mind, here I am.
Mm-hmm.
Dialysis, here I am. The next treatment, here I am. Willingness. And I don't know how often we affirm what a gift willingness is. But it seems to me it's like one of your spiritual gifts, Carl. Willingness.
I have a large story of my path forward. But one of the things that I've always said is that, sometimes, for me anyways, I have to just close my eyes and go where God points me. Not ask questions, just do it. So that's what I try to do. Yeah. And like you said, that going into surgery, I could go into it with peace, which I don't understand.
I love that. The peace that passes all understanding. We know where that one comes from.
Yeah. And I could go into it with that, with the blessing. And, yeah. Sorry.
Yeah, we had several times where it was a kiss before surgery, and we may not meet again in this world, but everybody gets that.
Well, and again, Carl, even today, thank you for your willingness today to be vulnerable and to be open and to share your path and your story. It was interesting because at the time, we had 2 kidney transplants in this community within like a month or 2 of each other. And it was kind of mind-blowing. I don't know, it just seems so close, and what could the odds of that be?
Yeah.
But thank you for being willing to share with us.
Thank you.
I just want to say, having spent time in my OHSU journey serving on a transplant panel, selection panel,
Mm-hmm.
that one of the things that we evaluate as a panel. We don't see the patient, but we listen to their social and psychological profiles. And your willingness to work with a team, your faith, your family support are so critical
Yes.
to listening to that. Okay, so that's a thumbs up, because that's going to be successful. Not, you know, there's faith, and then there's a partnership in working with what is available and the faith that you can be partners. And it's such an important piece. We also, I can't remember the time frame, but our neighbor is a pediatric transplant, and of course had to go to San Francisco. But he's a living donor, and in a familial disease, but the mother was, so she donated. And it's just been wonderful to see them and watch him grow, and that's a whole other piece of faith. And, it's just a miraculous thing that we can do. It is, yeah.
And donors are important too.
I worked on a unit where we would have heart transplant over here and trauma over here. And I had oversight over both, and I would be one of the few people that knew that this trauma patient's organs went over here. And we don't talk about that, but yeah. And it was not a big space, so people would kind of know. But, yeah, it's really something to have people wake up from a transplant. We had one heart transplant who was on New Year's Eve was dying. This is a big problem for heart transplants because there's no, well, there is kind of the dialysis you can put them through, but it's much more common. And of course, New Year's Eve, there are traumas. And he woke up New Year's Day with a new heart. And he kind of wasn't able to process the whole thing. It was, I can remember his face, you know, it's a new life.
Right.
It's a new beginning. It's New Year's Day. So it was kind of like.
Oh, you're so appreciative of the nurses and doctors.
Oh, though we could live without the delirium piece.
It was a nurse that told us the delirium. I thought he was gone maybe.
Oh,
you know, because in the mental facility wasn't there. But it was a nurse that said, "Oh, it's just delirium."
Well, it's a dedicated unit. They're totally savvy about all of those. The drugs hit you pretty hard. Yeah. And the kidneys don't always work like immediately. There's kind of a waking up period, so you're not clearing all that. You know, sometimes they do go back on dialysis. Well, the kidneys are kind of getting used to it.
And mine was slow to kick in.
Yeah, they just do their time. Yeah. But just so you know, the delirium is pretty common. Yeah. And
Didn't know that going in. Didn't even know that word. And so
yeah. It's too bad they don't prep you a little more for that.
And I had another thing done, and they had given me that drug as, you know, the same drug that caused the first delirium the second time around, until they discovered I was starting it again, and they stopped.
It's just don't. There's so many drugs.
Dilaudid.
Yes.
Oh, it's a great drug.
Oh, but
It makes you
good for
goofier.
him.
It makes you very goofy.
I don't even tolerate oxycodone. There's rats on the wall. But
yeah. I was just saying, I've had several patients that have had transplants of either kidney. One young man who ignored his diabetes and then was blind because of his diabetes, then had a pancreas, kidney, partial liver, I'm not sure, I don't know, anyway, had a big deal, and now he is diabetic free. He's not a diabetic, and of course still blind, and he's only mid-30s, but he has discovered this whole new thing that he can give back to people through his story. Through his story and what it means to not pay attention to your disease and then to be given this gift, you know, and that it did a lot for him. So that was what I asked for you, Carl. You know, is there a direction of your gift? I don't know. And maybe the gift is just to have your grandchildren you can share with.
Yeah. Or, like you said, talking to people, sharing.
Yeah.
Well, he's been my caregiver then, ever since then.
Yes.
Cancer and hip replacements, and he definitely has roles these plays.
Well, so there's the gift,
Yeah.
so that he can help you.
He can now help you. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, thanks for joining us.
Thank you,
Thank you,
for
Carl.
sharing. That was wonderful.
Thank you, Carl.
This is hard for an introvert.